Welcome to the First Amendment Center, First Amendment Forum here at Cronkite, and to a special edition of CronkiteLIVE. Many of you were not here for convocation back in December. We had our speaker, Louis Carr, who is the president of media sales for BET. And Louis gave a very good convocation speech. But we also took the opportunity in having someone like Louis here at Cronkite to engage in a discussion about career preparation. And really that is the topic of our discussion today here with this Cronkite Live, is the non-traditional path to a career in journalism or media. And so we recorded an interview or discussion that I had with Louis. And so we'll play portions of that for you today. But then we're also pleased to be joined by two very important people on our Cronkite team here. Karen Bordelot, who is our Director of Career Services here at Cronkite, who's been with us for quite some time, and John Nicoletti, who is the Director of the Cronkite Agency. And so Karen and John will also supplement some of the answers that Mr. Carr provided to us in the discussion, and then we'll also be able to answer questions that you all might have about your career and just navigating the journey into a career in journalism and media. So with no further ado, let's cut to the interview with Louis Carr. So question number one was, how did a journalism degree prepare you for a non-journalism career in sales? So Louis Carr is a graduate of Drake University, and so he will talk a little bit about his journey from that degree and his time at Drake, where he was also a track athlete, and into his career in media sales. So let's discuss that first question. And so our panelists will be able to answer some of your questions that you may have. But how can a journalism degree then prepare you for a non-journalism career? There's a lot of people who have come through Cronkite who have gone on to careers, and very successful careers, that have really very little to do with journalism. And so what's the path towards getting there? And maybe I'll start off with our panelists. What are your thoughts, Karen, in terms of how that might go? And then, John, what might you add as well?
Okay. So I loved what he said, and I'm just going to underscore it. I think anyone who can communicate well, writing emails even, is someone who is very valuable, in the professional world, in the business world, in newsrooms, in agencies. And you know, I think anybody who can communicate well can get a position doing anything except for maybe surgery or architecture or something. You probably don't want to be doing that, if, you know, unless you have a good bedside manner. But if you think about it, I mean, I've been a journalist my whole life. You know, I started actually in a newsroom when I was 17. And John and I have talked about this, and he'll tell you his parallel track, but my parallel track was, for a long time I was in journalism, and I was working for a small news organization, and I was working 6 days a week, and I had 2 small kids, and after like 3 years of that, I thought, oh my God, I gotta see my kids, I gotta have dinner with them, you know? So I went into public relations, and I did that for 2 years, and I was bored out of my mind. I'm sorry, John, but I was. But you know, but it was a parallel track kind of thing. And then I started teaching journalism too. So you can do a whole lot of things, you know, with a journalism degree, and we have a whole list here of experiences that we can talk to you about, but I'll let John answer the next one.
Thanks, Karen. I appreciate it. I think the interesting thing, Dean Batts, Karen, and obviously students, is that journalism allows you the opportunity, as Louis said, to be a great storyteller. But you also get all of the framework and the groundwork that you can use in any written or verbal communication. Being a great communicator is going to take you far in life. That includes being an architect and being a surgeon. Yeah. And if you learn how to tell those stories, to lean a little bit to what was being said, you're going to have a leg up beyond most people in any career that you choose to go into. My path is a little bit different. By the time I got to college, my sophomore year in college at UCLA, they got rid of the journalism major completely. So I had a choice. I could either go into English or I could go into history. And luckily, I had a mentor at the time who was my public speaking professor. And he said, I told him my career path, I wanted to go into broadcast journalism. And he said, you need a strong background in storytelling. And you're going to get that in either English or you're going to get that in history. And he said, those 2 backgrounds are going to prepare you. Everything else you can learn. Mm-hmm. But if you learn how to be a great storyteller, if you learn either great literature or great history stories, those things will inform what you can become. And you can learn how to become a broadcaster. Thank goodness we have great professors here that teach us that. You can learn all of those different skills. But if you're going to be in that type of field, learning how to tell that story, both written and verbally, is going to be, you're going to be leaps and bounds before. It was the best advice I ever got. It completely changed my life.
Can I just piggyback on that for a second too? Because I ran 3 different newsrooms, and one of them was the Providence Journal. So I was just telling John this just a minute ago. Last night I got an email from one of my reporters, former reporters, who just got a job as the deputy executive editor of the Sojourner House, which is a very big network of organization in Rhode Island that serves women who have been abused in some way. And the reason why she did that, this is a reporter, she was a reporter for like 30 years, is because she was good at telling trauma stories. That's what she was good at. She would do series on different kinds of trauma, you know, fire victims and so forth. And she developed a network, a side network, because she was very deep in that area, and that's why she got the job. So that's just one example of you going further beyond, you know, just telling a story in a news organization.
Yeah, and I think one of the things to kind of piggyback on that is, you guys know now a little bit about my background. The reason I got my first job in public relations was I had done internships in both broadcasting and in event promotion and in public relations. And it just so happened that the first job I was able to land, I walked into a PR firm. I had done very little PR outside of my internships. You guys know that I was an English major, not a PR major. And the person interviewing me for the job, and it was a small PR firm in Southern California, and she said, you know how to do media. You know how to do that media thing, right? And I said, yeah. She said, can you train somebody how to be on camera? And I said, yes, I can. And she said, okay, you can learn how to write a press release. We'll teach you how to do that. We want you here to help train the media, and we want you, and this is for the sports broadcasters that might be out there. She loved the fact that my background was more in sports broadcasting, because she said, my husband always told me to hire somebody who knows sports, because they said they're competitive, they like to, yeah, it's all about that. So just those couple of little nuggets continue to kind of progress my career.
Very good. I just want to add on to that as well, is that the skills that you get here in terms of storytelling and communicating and the understanding media, it cuts across all disciplines. And that you'll find that people will truly respect your ability to write and to communicate. And that even if you don't do it as a full-time job, that there's opportunities to do freelancing that can keep money in your pocket. That people will come to you for that. If you demonstrate that capacity to be able to write and communicate, it will, keep you either employed or with opportunities to earn additional revenue to supplement your income. So, great. Any questions that you all might have about that first topic before we move to topic number 2? All right. Question number 2 is, what is the most important skill students need to begin a successful career? Let's cut to Mr. Carr.
One of the things you have to be able to do to be able to work in any industry or adapt to any particular platform is to be flexible, be able to sort of blend in a very authentic way, to different cultures and different environments. Being open to learning new things, being open to change, being open to being flexible, still being able to show up in your best authentic self. Now that's a little different than a lot of people say. Some people say, show up being back as your authentic self. I say your best authentic self, because we all have some good things and bad things about us. We want to leave those bad things at home in the closet with a couple of locks on them, and we want to sort of excel in our good things. But as we were talking earlier today, this is the best time ever to be in this industry, because there's so many places that your skill sets can fit in. In every particular industry in this company, they need great communicators, they need great writers, they need great marketers, they need great PR. They need people who have strong skill sets in every single industry, on every single platform. So what a great time to be in this business.
What are your thoughts? John, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think from a skills standpoint, I'm going to go to one that I think this generation understands better than most, and that's tenacity. I think so many of the thoughts that come forward nowadays are, you can do this fast, and you can do this quick, and you can make $1 million, or you can make $1 billion. Hard work and tenacity are going to get you farther. I know it's very easy to succumb to the messages that are out there that I did this, and in 30 days I made X amount of money. The most important skills, whether you need a successful career in anything, is really all about tenacity and pushing forward. Your work ethic and what you bring to your daily life, what you bring to your classroom, what you bring to your partners, what you bring to your family. I love what Lewis said about your best authentic self. Mm-hmm. They deserve that from you. And if you're not willing to give that to those people and your career, then I think you're going to be left behind. So that tenacity, that willingness to bring your best authentic self all the time, 110%, it goes counterculture to what all of you are being spoon-fed by your social media platforms. But I think it's just critically important.
I think it's the long game. So, it's one step at a time, right? One authentic, ethical step at a time. And I think when you do that, then, 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, you can look back and be really proud of what you've accomplished and the connections you've made, because the difference between a Cronkite student, a Cronkite alum, and somebody else out there just putting stuff out on social media platforms or whatever, is the authenticity and the ethics involved in it. It's the vetting of the information. That sets you apart in such a big way. You probably don't even understand it yet, but you are so much more valuable when you use the ethics filter to do anything, including relationships or, employment, whatever it is. That's the most important thing, I think.
So I'm reminded of a line from a very good movie, or a movie at least I enjoy. I don't know how good it is. But how many of you all have seen Napoleon Dynamite, the movie? Okay, all right. So there's a line in the movie where Napoleon is talking about something. He said, well, to really do well, you need to have a skill. And then he starts talking about you need bow staff skills and all this other crazy stuff. But anyway, you need to have a skill. You need to have a thing that is your thing that you do better than most people. The thing that really helps that you stand out with, that when you go into your first job, you are sort of a subject matter expert in that particular thing. And that could be anything. It could be dealing with data. It could be working, with the cameras. It could be, just, storytelling, anything. But you need to have really a skill that is really yours and where you have an expert level in, that people come to you for, and that then will be the thing that you can say, hey, I do a lot of things well, but this is the thing that I do very, very well that you can count on me to deliver. So.
And plus, you're a native technologist. I'm not a native technologist. I clawed my way through technology, but you already have that. It's easy for you, right? And so newsrooms, agencies, any organization, they need you because you're so good at it. You already have a big skill, okay, just so you.
Any questions? Yes.
Have you ever been in a situation where you felt like you couldn't be your authentic self in a professional setting, and how did you overcome that?
Wow, that's a great question.
Yeah.
You go first, no.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, have I been in a situation, the question for anybody who couldn't hear that was, have I ever been in a situation where I was asked or I could not feel like I could be my authentic self? Yes, and it's frustrating. It's a situation where you know it as soon as you get into it, and you have to figure out a way to allow your authentic self to come through in bits and pieces, but still, I would say, always be looking for other opportunities. The hard part is, and we have all been there, is that a job is a job, and I need to make money, and I need to support those that I love. But sometimes you reach a point where you're just like, I can't do it anymore. I can't be my authentic self. I can't be my best authentic self. So it's a frustrating time where you wrestle with your own emotions a lot. And the ways that I've overcome that is to try and allow my authentic self to come out at times and in pieces, so that they gradually, the team I was working with, got to know me better. But eventually you'll reach a breaking point where you can't give anymore, and you can't pretend to be somebody you're not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's true. I would say, there's a lesson in everything. Every exchange of energy, even if it seems negative, there is a lesson in that. I mean, that's kind of how I look at life, right? So, for example, my first boss, I was 17, I was doing a column, a high school column, and then my high school allowed me to do an internship every Friday in the second half of my senior year at this newspaper. I got to spend the time in the newsroom. But my boss was 6'7", head of white hair, and he would get on a desk, think about how tall that is, right? And he would scream at people in the newsroom. Scream, and I mean scream. And I would have my head down like, oh my God, don't say my name, but it was mostly like the reporters, they missed this or they missed that or whatever. And I thought, oh my God, I am never going to treat people like he is treating people here. So I learned a lot from him about journalism, what makes a good story, what makes a good lead, but I also learned how not to treat people who work for me. Do you know what I mean? So and there are many examples of that, right? So it's not always like black or white. There are in between black and white, right? On the black scale, there's 98 shades of gray. So you sort of have to figure out, all right, are we in this part of it where I really have to get out of here, or can I still stick around and learn some other things, right? Does that make sense?
All right. Let's go to the next question. What are the fundamentals for achieving success in a career and life? Wow.
People who come in the industry and they really have intentionality about being successful, about making an impact, about understanding what they do. We're in this business thing that what we do is always bigger than ourselves, because the stories we tell, the impact that we have, the influence that we have is always bigger than us as individuals. So understanding that, being intentional about that, also being disciplined about some of the fundamentals. We were talking about writing earlier, where a lot of people have sort of pushed their writing skills to the side because of technology. Don't push them to the side. Keep them focused on them always. And really understanding how to show up in spaces as your best authentic self, being a true storyteller. The people who I see successful, they are just at it every single day. I mean, and they love it. It's not a job to them. It's a way of life. In my book, I talk about success is a way of life. You see it in all aspects. You know, you don't want to be the person that's a public success and a private failure. You want to be that person that is as successful in your private life as you are in your public life. So it's not something that is specific to those who are in the communication business. Those fundamentals are success for those who are in life, who are just trying to be good corporate citizens, contribute, and influence the broader communities.
Wow. I'm going to start off with that. I'm reminded of a saying that I've heard a lot recently, and that is, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And so if you approach something with a level of commitment and vigor, and that you're constantly, again, committed to it, that really is how you approach most things, okay? But, we all have things that we're perhaps more passionate about than others, but, we don't get to necessarily choose, what we want to do. We don't get to choose all of our assignments that we get at work. I'm Dean. I don't get to choose everything I get to do. I wish I could do only the things I like to do, but that's just not reality. But the thing is that you have to, first and foremost, that saying about how you do one thing is how you do everything, it's really all about protecting your brand. And you've got to protect your brand. What do you want your brand to be? What do you want to be known for? And my hope is that you want to be known for being reliable, for being on time, and for being excellent at what you do. And if you do those three things, you're going to be successful, and things will come your way really without you even having to ask for them, because your reputation precedes you. And if you have a reputation of not being reliable, not being on time, not doing things well, you won't last very long, I promise.
I love that, and you said the word passion. So I hope that each one of you, whichever direction you go in your career, that you find the career that makes you want to get out of bed in the morning and be passionate about it. I am so blessed that from the time I was young until right now, that being in journalism, I remember being in the newsrooms and looking at the clocks and saying, oh my God, and not like, oh my God, I got another 3 hours before I can go home. I never did that. It was always like, oh my God, I got 3 more hours to edit this entire series. I'm never gonna finish. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was so excited about being there. Every single day, you're with like this, you have this camaraderie of people who are around you doing the same thing. And so I'm really wishing that for you, because I think that is important. And if you don't feel lit up when you're either in a newsroom or whatever you're going to do, it's time to think about doing something else. Think about it, like, what is it? You gotta ask yourself the question now, what is it that makes me so happy? So I think that's one thing. The other thing is to go above and beyond, and I think the dean mentioned this. the answer is to just about always say yes. I say that like, and then I'm gonna like, there's gonna be tons of examples where you're gonna say, but suppose some guy, no, I don't mean, I don't mean the bad stuff, but I mean like if somebody's giving you an opportunity, hey, can you participate in this panel discussion, right? There's preparation to that, or, can you give a speech about this or whatever? Lots of preparation. You're using your weekend to do that kind of stuff. The answer should be yes, because guess what? You're gonna learn something from that too, right? Your energy is going to go out there and it's gonna help somebody else see the light or whatever. It's going to, somebody's going to get tinged by it or something, and it's going to make a difference for them. But yet, you're doing something that has a really big effect or can have a really big effect. So the answer is, if you can possibly do it, say yes, right? That makes you more, it helps your brand. It helps people, you're in front of people all the time. They understand what your message is. You see what I mean? So instead of kind of hiding and saying, nope, it's 5 o'clock, I'm out of here, say yes more. Okay, that's mine.
Wow, there's so much there from both of you. I want to jump in on everything. First of all, from a personal brand standpoint, that was something, and I don't know how you guys feel, but when I was growing up, when I was your age, college age, personal brand was not a thing. It was, I don't want to do anything to upset my parents or my family or disrespect any job that I was going to. I wanted to bring my best self, and I wanted to work hard. Personal brand and talking about personal brands has just sort of evolved, but I absolutely think it's crucial to everything that you guys are going to do, because it is, you guys all know what a brand is, right? It's a promise. It's a promise that every time I go to a McDonald's or every time I drink a Coca-Cola, it's going to taste the same way. I'm going to believe in that product, right? If I say the ultimate driving machine, you guys know that that's BMW. So when you think about what skill you bring to the job or what level of excellence you bring to a job, when somebody says your name, it should be, I can count on them to perform that skill. They're going to bring their excellence. They're going to bring their passion. That personal brand is going to say something. And that goes all the way down to your resume. That goes down to your portfolio. That goes down to your LinkedIn profile. All of those sorts of things as you're out and thinking about marketing yourself, and how you show up every day is going to be really important. That all speaks to your brand and the promise that your name comes with. And then just from the opportunity standpoint that Karen mentioned, I was a terrible student at UCLA. Terrible. Just bad. Like, I can show you my transcript, bad. I was a first-generation college student. I didn't know the difference between a public and a private university. I didn't know anything about internships. So when I graduated with my degree in English, I had two choices. I could go back to grad school, or I could go get an emergency credential and teach English in South Central Los Angeles. I chose grad school. I was fortunate enough that my parents were able to help me, and that was when things turned around for me. And I had a chance. Now, all of you being here have such a rock-solid base to grow on, better than I did, so congratulations to you for making an incredible choice to be here. But I had to get mine with an extra degree, and I basically then crammed a 4-year degree into a year and a half of my master's work, and I did 4 internships. I did one for CBS Sports in downtown Los Angeles. I did one with an event promotion firm called Sportscasters Camp of America. I interned at a small television station up in Oxnard, California, and I worked for the city of Anaheim. All 4 of those internships ended up in jobs later in life. Every one of them. Somebody I met there, the head of Sportscasters Camps of America, was a gentleman by the name of Roy Engelbrecht. Roy ended up buying an arena football team that then came to play at the arena that I helped build. CBS Sports led to a job as a freelance field producer for CBS Sports. They flew me all over the country to interview people on Saturdays and Sundays when I wasn't doing my PR job. So that was supplementing my income, just taking advantage. The city of Anaheim, I ended up being the chief spokesperson for the city of Anaheim. And that led to my job with Disney. So every piece that I was said yes to, everything that I said, I don't know anything about that, but I'll try it. And I brought what I could, my skill set, and I tried to bring my passion to every one of those jobs, and they eventually all paid off. So I'm a big believer that you just never know where the door's going to open.
Absolutely. So I want to piggyback on that also and say, so I'm going to pull a line from another movie. How many of y'all seen the movie The Untouchables with Kevin Costner in it? And so Sean Connery has a character in there, and he's getting ready to die, and so they're trying to bring down Al Capone. And so Sean Connery, in one of his very last lines, he grabs Kevin Costner, who's playing Elliot Ness. He grabs him by the chest and says, "What are you prepared to do?" And so that resonates, because the question is that you have to ask yourself, what are you prepared to do to achieve what it is that you want to achieve? How far are you willing to go? How much effort are you willing to put into it? You know, are you totally committed to that? And if you're not, then maybe this isn't the endeavor that you really want to go after. But whatever that thing is that you, again, don't mind putting in the extra hours, the extra time, the weekends that you'll forego other things for, that's the thing that you're going to be successful at, because you will be single-minded about it, and that there's really no limit to how far you're willing to go to achieve that. Lastly, my dad was in career planning and placement, had the same job that you had, and he said to me that success is not determined by dollars and cents, but by whether you enjoy what you're doing so much that you would do it for free. So what is that thing that you love doing so much that you do it now, whether or not you get compensated for it, that you have so much passion around it, and you're really, really good at it? You ought to follow that, because that's really where you have an opportunity to be successful. All right, let's see the next question. Final advice.
Never think in a little smaller box. Think about endless possibilities. Think about how big that you could possibly be in anything you do.
Wow, that was fast.
Think real big. Yeah, you have to think big. I mean, don't constrain yourself. I mean, the world is really, truly, it's a cliche, but the world really is your oyster and yours for the taking. And don't limit your thinking in terms of what you're going to do. I will tell you, I'll be completely honest with you. If you asked my 22-year-old self, or told me that my 55-year-old self would be sitting here as a dean of a journalism school, I would be like, you got to be kidding me. I did not see that in terms of possibilities for my career and where it was going to take me. And so you really don't know. And what I will say is, to really make it digestible or really comprehensible for you, is that maybe to think about it in maybe 3 to 5 year increments, and really try to break it down and say, okay, here's where I am, here's where I want to be in the next 3 to 5 years, because there's also going to be surprises. There's going to be your roadmap, there's going to be your plan, and then there's going to be life's plan. And there's going to be things that you're going to encounter that you did not see coming. So,
I sometimes use this as an analogy. I believe that there's some kind of a, you're gonna get to a final destination. That's the destination that you're supposed to be at. But, like, for example, you could go from New York to Los Angeles in a 6-hour plane ride, right? Boom, you're there, you're done. Or you can go to from New York to Los Angeles by, like, going to Florida first, then New Jersey, then up to Maine, then back to New York. Do you see my point, right? It doesn't really matter. I mean, think about all the things in a way. If you went to the Florida and you went to the Maine and you went to Michigan and back to New York, think about the myriad experiences you have along the way that will make you such a better person, right? So it's okay for you not to go from here to here like this. Life is for these experiences, so take them. I think that's one of the things that I want to say. Another thing, too, I just want to bring up, because, being in career and professional development, and particularly with internships, by the way, there's an internship thing coming up next week, sign up for it. But particularly with internships, when you leave here, you represent the Cronkite School. You represent it now, and you will always represent it when you graduate from here, as an alumni, okay? I tell you this because The door is already open to you because you're a Cronkite student and an alum. We have an excellent reputation out there in journalism land. I have recruiters calling all the time that they want to come in, they want to talk to our students, right? Your responsibility, what's your first name? Chris's responsibility, and yours? Audika's responsibility is to keep the door open for the people from Cronkite who are coming behind you. That means, Nick, you're going to be doing an excellent job at your first internship, right? If it's at whatever, just say 12 News, you're going to do the most excellent job because that will mean that 12 News is going to hire yet another Cronkite student. Do you see the responsibility here? So it's not just about your one experience. It's about keeping the door open all the time for everyone coming behind you. Right. And I always felt like that about, being a woman in journalism, because in the 70s, I mean, we just got to cover, feature stories. But the more I did in news, the more and the better I did at it, the more it left the door open for other women coming in journalism behind me. Okay, does that make sense to you?
I always tell the students, and I see some of them in here from the Cronkite Agency on the first day, we've only been operating for about a year. But their responsibility is the legacy of the Cronkite Agency. They're going to go out and determine what kind of clients we get to work with in the future, what kind of jobs other Cronkite students can get. They're creating the legacy. It's not who's sitting in my chair. It's what the students are producing in the agency and then what they go and do in the real world. And that is fantastic. It's a tremendous responsibility, but it keeps that door open for other people to come in. So when I have somebody literally 2 weeks ago say, hey, I just got an email, she says she was a part of the Cronkite Agency, she's getting an interview, can you tell me more about her? She was getting the interview because she knew, the recruiter knew that she was a part of that Cronkite Agency. We need to keep that legacy going. You all will be the legacy of Cronkite and our agency students. To kind of tee off the dream big thing, I had the good fortune to work for Disney for 11 and a half years, both at the movie studio and in parks and resorts. And Disney is kind of known for dreaming big, especially in our parks and resorts. And I told the story to our agency students, but I can tell it again here, is, when I remember when we were getting ready to take on the Avatar project I coordinated the press conference for everyone to take part in that. And then I started to meet with the Imagineers. And the Imagineers crossed between imagination and engineering, right? The Imagineers were able to start envisioning what this world would look like. And the one thing I remember meeting with the lead engineer, his name was Joe Rohde, and Joe said, hey, talk to me about Avatar. And he said, what do you know when you think about Avatar? Like, what do you see? Anybody? What do you see when I say Avatar? What does that bring to mind? Serenity, peace, excellent. What else? Blue people, right? Or blue landscape or something like that, right? And the other thing, I used all those examples. He goes, what about the flying mountains? And I go, yeah, I remember the flying mountains and right, and the mist flying up. And he goes, I'm going to make the mountains fly. And I said, you're insane, and you'll never be able to do that. And he goes, you watch me. And if you go to Avatar Land now, or Pandora as they call it, at Walt Disney World, you literally look up and you can take pictures with the flying mountains in the background. And I'll never forget it. It was Joe, and it was his idea of thinking big. But what we did from a communication standpoint was we did the same thing. So in our brainstorming sessions, and I used to host them once a month, anybody could bring their communications problem that had them stuck, whether it was executive communications or internal or public relations, and we'd all get together. There were no titles involved. Anybody from the assistant to the vice president could come in with a problem, and we'd give them a half an hour and we would brainstorm. And we used to call them our wow sessions. And the reason we called them wow was because the big question at the end was, where's my wow? Where were the floating mountains? Where was, the fireworks show over the Rose Bowl? Where's my wow? So I want you guys to think about that and take that in your careers. And when you're thinking about your personal brand, think about taking it to that next level. Every one of you in here is capable of that. You already have the basis here at Cronkite. whether it's ethics, whether it's professionalism, whether it's the great instruction you get here, you are not being called to stay here. You are being called to look for something better and greater and continue to contribute to the legacy of Cronkite. So think about that as you're thinking about applying for internships or applying for jobs. It's like, where's my wow? Like, what's going to get me up in the morning? What's going to get my passion moving? To follow on your New York to California story, Kobe Bryant, in one of his famous speeches, talked about the fact of the goal is not the end, right? It's the journey. Yep. It's the journey that's meaningful. It's the journey where you should be getting your energy from. And if you do that, as opposed to setting a goal for yourself and meeting that goal, if you allow yourself to go on that journey, if you allow yourself to take part wholeheartedly and believe in that journey, your goal is going to be surpassed, far surpassed, to a place, it'll take you to a place you never thought you'd get to. And that was kind of Kobe's legacy, was that he was sharing, like, I never would have thought if I would have set an ordinary goal, if I want to be an all-star or I want to do this. He said, I allowed myself to go on that journey, and it took me so much farther than I ever would.
It's so true. And since you referenced Kobe, I'm going to go further and reference Michael Jordan. So one of my favorite commercials, and you all can look this up, look up the Michael Jordan Fail, Succeed commercial. And it talks about how many times he failed in life, how many shots that he missed. And if you want to achieve great things, you cannot be afraid to fail. And you have to have a really singular focus again, and then not have that fear of failure. And because failure is part of the equation, yes. And then to go back to Kobe, I heard Kobe talk about, okay, so you miss a shot. Yeah, or you lose a game. Yeah, it sucks, but there's always tomorrow. There's always another game. There's always another chance. And so if you want to achieve great things, you have to think big, but you can't be afraid of failure. And when you encounter failure, don't let that derail you. Learn from it. You learn so much more from failing than you do from when you do well. And also, when you fail and then succeed, it's so much more rewarding because you can look at your progress and the bounce back and your growth. So that's just another thing to think about. All right, we got about 20 minutes or 17 minutes to be exact. So what questions do you all have about what we've covered here today? Yes?
Seems like there's this big debate lately about like being specialist versus a generalist, and that's always been a thing. And it kind of ebbs and flows, what in career life is going to get me the more ideal job or whatever, or the better one along the way to the one that I never expected. That kind of stuff. So I feel like a lot of students have this kind of feeling that, oh, I can't just be good at one thing anymore. I need to be good at a little bit of everything. So what, in your professional opinions, would be the better place to start out? Do you start and hold your magnifying glass to one specific skill as a student and get really, really good at that in the beginning and let that open yourself up to more opportunities? Or do you start getting good at a little bit of everything and find out where that takes you and discover some sort of passion along the way?
Can I take it first?
Yeah,
Okay, sorry. But, life should be like, you learn about writing and news writing, it's like the inverted pyramid. So you should go from really, I think, from the broad to the specific. I think right now, I know this might counter what I said earlier, but it really doesn't. And I said, hey, you need to have a thing like your skill, the thing that you have a expert level of ability in. But really at this point where you all are in your careers, you need to really also be a generalist. You don't want to shut out any opportunity to, number one, to first of all get employed, but then second of all, to continue your learning. You're learning a lot here, but you're going to learn so much more once you go beyond here that you really want to, at this point, keep your options as open as possible because, yes, you have a sense of self-awareness, but trust me, you have skills and talents and abilities and interests that you don't even know about right now, okay? And the only way that you're going to get exposed to them is by keeping your mind open and really taking that generalist approach and then learning more about those things. And while you, again, have that thing that you may do very well, that you could say, okay, here's my skill set. But again, this is a snapshot in time, because the person you are right now is not the person you're going to be 12 months from now, or 3 years from now, or 5 years from now, or 10 years from now. And so it would be wrong-minded, in my opinion, to really focus on really just one thing at this point.
I'll jump in here too. Are you in journalism or are you in public relations?
I think I'm going more into marketing. I started off in journalism. Yeah, so it's
Okay.
kind of a myriad of what do I even want to do? There's so many options. And
Right.
now, even this generation that we talked about how there's so much opportunity,
Yep,
that can also be kind of like a, whoa.
I know it.
You look at this the way, what do I even, I don't know what I like yet.
Well, that's okay, and you don't have to, right? One of the things that I coach students on in careers is I use this example of a Mayan pyramid. You know how that looks, right? Like this, right? And so, to the dean's point, the bottom of the pyramid I interpret as being general, all right? So I'm going to use journalism as an example because, that's kind of my life, right? So general assignment reporting, report on everything, learn everything. And then, the next step, or even the next internship or the next job, it should not be the same as the one before. It should be more specific. You should be figuring it out along the way. If it's 5 years down the road, or it could be different even, right? But so, for example, you're a general assignment reporter. Well, you started covering more healthcare stuff, okay? And so now you have a little bit of an expertise in that. That's like the second part of the pyramid, right? Then, you cover it even deeper, right? You're starting to go deep now. You already know how to cover the cops if you have to on a Saturday night or whatever. But now you're going deep and you're getting expertise in that area. And then, your next job, maybe you are the top medical reporter for that news organization or something, and you are now at, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, or you're at the New York Times or whatever. That's what I'm talking about the Mayan pyramid. As long as that person who's doing that, who's climbing those outside steps, has the passion, continues to have the passion for the subject. If not, it's okay. Go to another pyramid and start over again. It's okay. Like I don't ever want you to go into something and to stay into something just because, you're getting a paycheck. No way. Like, one of the things I said earlier is just sort of sit with yourself. What lights you up? Like, you have to answer that question somewhere along the way. And as he said, what lights you up now might not light you up in 3 years or 5 years from now. It might be something completely different because you've been exposed to something new, all right? So I hope that answered your question, but yeah, okay, thank you.
And I would only add, Christiane, that in my mind, you need to be good at all of it, but your passion is going to determine what you want to be great at. So if you think about, yes, we want you to be a generalist, we want you to have an amazingly broad group of skills, but your passion is then going to drive you towards what you want to be excellent at, and that's going to be your thing, and that's going to be your skill. So I would start off with that, and if you've got that thing right now, and once again, to Karen's point, that may change every 5 years. But if you've got that one thing that you're super passionate about, that, learn all the things around that, and then when it comes the time, demonstrate your expertise or your knowledge or your passion for that one area. And that may shift, but it's okay. It's okay. What else? I think somebody else had a hand.
I think it's worth pointing out that we've all shifted here too. So, the dean, you started as a reporter, right? And now he's a dean. Look at that, right? And so I started as a reporter, and I was an executive editor in a couple of different news organizations, and I did PR. And you have a parallel track too, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So we sort of, so it's never, and I know for any of us, it was not linear. You take a left turn and you're like, ooh, I kind of like this, and you sort of keep going. Or you do things at the same time. Like for me, teaching journalism, I would drive up after the Page One news meeting at the Providence Journal, I would drive up, sometimes through a snowstorm, not kidding, to get to Emerson College to teach, an editing and design course. I did this for years, and like driving up there, I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing this to myself for? But then being in the classroom with students, like it totally lit me up and reminded me of like, that's why you're doing this, and I'm driving home at 11 o'clock at night in the snowstorm, all happy again, you know what I mean? So anyway, that's, I just wanted to point out that we did not take the linear path here.
No, I think we've all kind of bounced around, which is great. And my teaching stories are much different because I taught in Malibu. So my drive was a lot nicer than snowstorms. I used to drive Sunset along PCH. It was fantastic. Other questions?
I know that for myself, I'll be starting the interview process soon, and I'm sure that can apply to just internships as well. Do you have any advice for strong questions that you can ask employers when they ask if you have any questions at the end of the interview?
Wow, that's, well, okay. Number one is to do your research. And I tell students this, and not just the research on the company, man. That is a given, right? You need to know who's interviewing you. And so that whoever that person is, you want to make a connection immediately with that person. There's a really good thing when you take JMC 484 or an MCO 484. There is this module that has this I think it's one of the the Voice or something, where this young man who goes in and he knows about all three of those of the judges, and he grew up where one of them grew up, and he says this, and they love him before he even starts to sing. That's what you want to get to, okay? So you need to do that much research, and it's an expectation, and I'll hear about it if you didn't do your research. I will hear about it. I think the questions should be really high caliber at the end, and obviously it depends on what was said during the interview itself. But you can always say, so what is the best part of the job here for you? For the person who's interviewing you, or even what's your challenge and how you overcome it? Things along that line, things that they might have even asked you. I kind of want to know why they're there doing what they're doing. If I want to stay here and I want to stay here, where would I be in 5 years? Where could I be in 5 years? That shows them that you're really interested and invested in this particular position. I mean, even if you don't stay for 5 years, at least you will have asked the questions. So something along those lines. You might have another example.
I always ask a culture question. So for me, it's all about what do you love about the work here, the work environment here, the people here, and what don't you like? And that way you'll get a feeling. The one thing I know when you guys are out doing internships or getting interviews for internships or first jobs, some of you go in with desperation, okay? And I understand that you want to get a job and I graduated and everything's got to be on time and it's got to be this path. Remember that in an interview situation, you're interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing you. You have to decide that every morning you're going to get up and give 110% of yourself to this company, and it's got to be meaningful. So please realize that the more questions you ask about, wow, I really don't think that was a great interview, right? I wasn't getting a good vibe from this person, or know that might be going deeper into your soul, that you might have a reason you don't want to be there, right? So I would ask questions about, what's it like to be here, as opposed to just not the everyday work, because work is going to be work, okay? What do you love about being here? Why are you here every day? What's part of this culture that I can't get anywhere else? So something that separates them. They should sell you both on themselves and on the brand of that company, just like we were talking about your personal brand, right? There should be something that they do really, really well, and it might be culture, or it might be something else, another skill set. So please, make sure that you guys are interviewing those companies as part of your interview process.
My team, by the way, will do interviews, like mock interviews with you. So there are ways, so if you just go on the Career and Professional Development website, right, you can it says meet the team, you can meet with any one of us, and we can do a mock interview with you, So that would help sort of, oil the wheels to get you feeling a little bit more comfortable about it.
Yeah. The other thing I would say is, okay, we'll get your questions. I'll close out with this one, is that don't be afraid to go into the interview with a little bit of swagger and a little bit of confidence, but confidence that's not, that's backed up, right? That's not misplaced, but it's backed up, first of all, because you come from Cronkite, okay? But second of all, that you're prepared and you've got the goods, and that you understand what the company is looking for and that what the company needs, and that you are a solution to a problem, and that they need to invest in you and acquire you as a solution because you got the goods, and have some confidence that you're able to be that solution that they need, and a little bit of swagger. Again, you're modest and you're happy to be there, but remember, they're interviewing you because they have a need that they're looking to get filled. And so you have to be able to project yourself as a solution to that.
Lean into it too. I just did this mock interview thing with a student, it was an alum actually last week, and it was really interesting to me. And so, I said, all right, let's play. And I said, okay, tell me why you want to work here. Tell me about yourself, tell me why you want to work here. And he did okay, like, oh, my name is this, and, I have a degree in this, and, I really want to do this. And then he said, and he's sort of sitting back a little bit, and then he said, and I just, I really want to hear more about, this opportunity. Definitely not, okay? Because you should know about that opportunity. The last line of that, tell me about yourself and why you want to work here, is you have done the research and you know that they need this, this, and this, that they only have, this number of, viewers on their website, and because you're a digital audience or whatever, you know how to take it from 100,000 to 200,000 by doing this, this, and this. Shock them, Go in there with your stuff. That's coming in confident with a backup, okay? So he and I talked about that, and so I said to him, in 2 weeks, I'm going to give you 2 weeks, I'm going to do this all over again, and I want to see you excited. Like he was fine. Like, it's a fine interview. It was a B interview. But you're Cronkite, easily you can do the A interview. I want to see him be excited and passionate about this. So be excited and passionate when you're doing an interview, okay?
Now I'm just thinking back to my interview with Dean Batts 15 months ago. I'm kind of like judging myself.
But you're here.
Yeah, I guess did okay.
You were passionate. You were confident. You had swagger. All right, last question in the back there.
So if I understand the question correctly, it's do we believe there will be enough jobs for students who with English as a second language who might be here as refugees, correct? Yeah. I actually think nowadays there are more opportunities for you because you have a unique voice and you have a unique story. And that, as the world becomes more global, as we are all thinking about diversity of thought and diversity of opinion, you have a unique point of view that not anybody in this room can touch. And if you lean into that story and be your best authentic self, like we've talked about many, many times, I think people will resonate with that because you have a way of seeing things that none of us else can compare to. And that is your one thing. It makes you unique and it makes you special and it makes you better prepared to tell a story from a unique point of view.
Anyone who has multiple languages, understands multiple cultures, is someone who is very valuable off the mark. Very valuable. And so, it really kind of depends as far as, payment goes and, Social Security and all of those kinds of things. There's a whole bunch more bureaucracy that you would have to go through, but you're still very valuable. And a lot of companies would be certainly willing to bring you on because of that.
All right. Well, this has been a great session, and we have acquired for you all copies of Lewis Carr's book. So they're free. They're right behind you here to the left wall under the Burns Theater sign there. So please be sure to pick up your copy, and not only pick it up, but read it and learn something from it. But this has really been fun. Karen and John, thank you for your time.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was great.